What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're excited to continue talking about the 2023 Dallas Cowboys draft class. The draft is over, obviously. It's a big event, and we have the schedule release coming up soon, reportedly going to be happening on May 11th. We're excited about that, but the draft is hard to let go of, even though it's over, right? The draft is hard to really kind of put all the way behind us because the Dallas Cowboys have 8 brand new players. We're all excited about what they're going to offer the team. We're all excited about the team as a whole. And obviously, there are other components of the draft that we have to consider, like the fact that 3 of the picks that the Dallas Cowboys would have had were traded for veterans and Brandon Cooks, Stephon Gilmore, and Jonathan Hankins in the middle of last season. But we're here today to talk about the picks that the Cowboys made over the draft weekend, and we're going to grade them. These grades are 100% correct. These grades should not be criticized in any way, shape, or form. And these grades are stone cold, undeniable fact. In all seriousness, I think assigning grades to draft picks is a fun exercise, but we obviously don't know who these players are as NFL players. We haven't seen them play NFL snaps, and we all have a lot of hopes for them, but we can grade things based off of where they were projected to go by draft experts. We can grade things based off of positional need, how the Cowboys addressed problems that we outlined for them. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. We are going to go in draft order. That means we're going to go with the very first pick the Cowboys made all the way through the last one. There were 8 total selections as mentioned. Let's begin. Mazi Smith, their first round selection. I did put all these grades, by the way, on my Instagram page if you want to follow. I'm trying to be more active on there as well as Twitter. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at RJ Ochoa, but B+, the grade from me. There's a great video going around right now. If you check out the Dallas Cowboys YouTube channel, obviously you're subscribed there. Please subscribe here also. Of the Cowboys War Room contingent debating between Mazi Smith and a guard. And so we don't know, ultimately what the total pre-draft process was like for the Cowboys, but they obviously went with Mazi Smith, and it makes sense, right? It makes sense because of all the things we've talked about to this point. They got that 3-tech monster, that athlete, that interior defensive lineman. Can you talk about positional value, or not positional value, overall value, whether they reached or not? This was kind of the plight the Cowboys had throughout the entire draft because of where they sat in each and every round. Near the end of it, they kind of did have to reach a little bit because the players they liked were unlikely going to be there when they came up for their next pick. And so that's just kind of the way this thing goes when you're picking at the back of the draft order. You don't get to have these consensus players because everybody gets a pick, right? That's the magic and the wonder and the beauty of the NFL draft. So Mazi Smith, I'll give a B+. And I think that honestly, there are probably a lot of people who want to bump it up to an A-. I'm totally fine with that. This was just a pick that I handed out in the moment, so I'm sticking to it. Mazi Smith, B+. Honestly, though, my favorite pick of the entire draft, not named Deuce Vaughn, which we'll get to in a little bit. Luke Schoonmaker, also out of the University of Michigan. I gave a B-. And some of that is the value. A lot of people did not believe in Schoonmaker as being one of the better tight ends in the class. Matt Waldman is a big believer, had him, I believe, as his second overall tight end. And so things like that are encouraging. And this does kind of tend to happen. And we have to be careful not to just look for the information that we want, right? To confirm our hopes and our wants and our wishes. And I think sometimes we do that with drafts, right? We look at players the Cowboys selected, or whoever your favorite team is, you look at players that team picked and you find all the positive things and you say, well, this is why they picked them, because we're all human. We all want these players to succeed. But in reality, Luke Schoonmaker is a really talented athlete, and that's a really strong common denominator throughout all of these picks that the Cowboys made. They all tested very well from an athletic standpoint, and Luke Schoonmaker is certainly one of those examples. And obviously, the Cowboys had a needed tight end with letting Dalton Schultz leave in free agency. Yes, they have Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, but they need to get more aggressive from an aerial perspective. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I told you, I wrote about this at bloggingtheboys.com if you want to go check that out. But Luke Schoonmaker is not going to be running 20 yards down the field, but he is going to get a little bit more vertical than we saw Jake Ferguson get throughout his rookie season. And that was a very small sample size, but given his speed, given his versatility as an athlete, Luke Schoonmaker can offer that to the Cowboys. But again, maybe you would have liked a different tight end. So I'm willing to, go B- here. That feels a little harsh, but I do think this is a pick that a lot of more people are coming around to as we get further and further away from the time that the Cowboys made it. Let's move now to their second pick on Friday night. DeMarvion Overshown, the linebacker, call him safety if you want, out of the University of Texas, the worst school in the state of Texas, says the Texas A&M Aggie. In all seriousness, linebacker was a low-key, maybe high key, as I learned was an actual term on our live shows, need for the Cowboys. And yes, they brought back Leighton Vander Esch, but they not only lost Luke Gifford in free agency, they did not bring back Anthony Barr, who obviously, finished out his time with the Cowboys this past season. Anthony Barr played over 600 snaps for the Cowboys. You have to find somewhere for those to go, right? And maybe you believe in Damone Clark, and that's fine, right? I think we all believe in Damone Clark. And Damone Clark, by the way, is an example of how well the Cowboys draft, as they spent a 5th-round pick on him a year ago. And here we sit today saying, well, why do they have to draft a linebacker? They have Damone Clark. These are the players the Cowboys like. And we talk about this a lot. This phrase has been said a million times, but they have earned the benefit of the doubt with regards to the NFL draft. And so while I didn't totally love this pick in my initial gut instinct moment, it fits a need. He has a highly talented skill set. He is athletic as well. And he's somebody who plays that linebacker safety hybrid role that we know Dan Quinn loves to work different players in. And so Jaron Kearse is entering a contract year with the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see what ultimately happens there if they do let him walk. But I like that they have replenished there. They love those kind of hybrid players for the back end of their defense. So this is a well done job by them. They got an A- from me. Let's move on to Junior Fehoko, the first pick on Saturday afternoon on day 3. Gives them a really interesting defensive lineman prospect. And there's a lot of people, the Cowboys already talking about how they might beef him up and kick him inside, have him play some 3 technique. And that is something that I think we need to pay a lot of attention to. I wrote about how the Cowboys obviously have some questions that they still have to answer in the aftermath of the draft. But one question that they did provide the answer to throughout the draft itself was that they want to get stronger against the run. Mazi Smith is a huge example of that. I would even argue that DeMarvion Overshown is an example of that. But Junior Fehoko, especially if they do want to use his athletic skill set as some sort of 3 tech, they are tired of getting run over in the middle of their defensive line. And so I love this pick. It is I don't want to call it a project, but it is a pick that I think is going to take some nurturing in terms of developing Fehoko to be exactly what they want him to be. So yeah, I mean, again, this Dallas Cowboys defense is very good and got a lot better over the course of the top of the NFL draft. And that's something that we really like to see. Asim Richards taken in the 5th round by the Cowboys. This one is a little bit indifferent on. I gave it a B, and some of that is really just because the Cowboys finally got an offensive lineman. But I talked about how we have some questions in the aftermath of the draft, and one of them for me is kind of 3 questions baked into one. What is going to happen at left guard? Is Tyler Smith the starting left guard? If he is, then is Tyron Smith playing left tackle? But the Cowboys have talked about wanting Tyler Smith to play left tackle. So who's playing left guard? Is it Chuma Edoga? Is it Matt Farniok? Is it Asim Richards? And that's the thing. The Cowboys did not really draft a guard. They did draft an offensive lineman, but he's a tackle with guard flexibility. So that's not something to hold against Asim Richards. I do think he is a talented offensive lineman. The fact that he has that versatility to his game certainly gives the Cowboys some options to play around with. We know that they love their position flexibility as a whole. In the overall, I think this is a smart pick. You had to ultimately come away with some interior offensive line help, and they established that. I think part of it is us just dealing with the sort of mental reckoning of not understanding the construction of the Cowboys offensive line. It is a more unique thing. We are well past the days of having the obvious 5 starters from left to right that we can just count on each and every single week. The Cowboys have to have multiple contingency plans, and the Asim Richards pick to me is an example of moving forward in that direction. Next one for me is my most harsh grade that I'm going to hand out. This is the pick that kind of caught all of us off guard. If you were watching our live shows, we finished up our stream for rounds 4 and 5. We were going to take about a 10-minute break, and we launched a new one for rounds 6 and 7, but we couldn't even get to 10 minutes because the Dallas Cowboys traded up at the very top of the 6th round to draft Eric Scott Jr. Gave them a corner option. I gave this grade a C, and I gave this grade out in the initial moment, like I said, and you can go look at my Instagram post to see them and see the time on that if you'd like. And I understand that in the days since, we have, I think the most coming around has happened with this pick because there was the most room to gain. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to come around. We talked about Luke Schoonmaker. I graded that as a B-, right? Like you don't have as much room to make up, right? But if your initial grade is a C, there's a lot of room to improve. I hope that makes sense. This was weird, and this was very reminiscent of Nashawn Wright. A lot of draft experts, draft insiders were kind of taken aback by this, didn't even have a real proper grade on Eric Scott Jr., had him going undrafted. And to be clear here, the Cowboys spent a 6th round pick. Now they did trade up, so there is some extra value associated with that. But we're not talking about the Nashawn Wright thing was a day 2 pick. It was the 3rd round selection. So not something worth totally panicking over this particular time, but it was very confusing. And there is some, I don't want to call it confusion, but at least some hope that the 40 time that he was, registered with, the 4.71, is not truly indicative of the 40 that he's capable of running. I know he has said that there was the quad issue and things like that he's run a much faster one since then. And so we talked about it, right? We're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And it's a 6th-round pick. And I recognize they had to pay to trade up to do it. But if they were in love with him as a prospect, he was a top 30 visit for them. I mean, double down with the day 3 pick. I'm all about that. These aren't all lottery tickets, but there is some lottery ticket nature to that. But I did give it a C in the moment, so I'm going to stick to that. That's my grade for Eric Scott Jr. The next one is super easy. Deuce Vaughn, 6th-round pick, A+, A+ player, A+ moment, A+ aftermath. I mean, I don't know. I know that there are a lot of people who love the Mazi Smith pick, right? I know that there are other people besides myself who are really excited about the Luke Schoonmaker pick. I know some people are down on the DeMarvion Overshown pick, right? Like there are different picks the Cowboys made that have different levels of division, right? Some people excited, some people not. This one has 0 levels of division. I think we all agree he's a smaller player from a physical standpoint, but I think everybody agrees this was a home run. This was, again, to get him as late as you did, the story involved, the moment, the Chris Vaughn aspect. I mean, there's nothing that I can say that hasn't been said along those lines, but this is really, really, really exciting. And part of what I'm excited about is something that Deuce Vaughn has in common with Mazi Smith, and it's a deviation from the norm. Now, Deuce Vaughn is a really extreme example of that, and the Cowboys getting an incredibly small player, the smallest height ever measured at the NFL Combine. But like Mazi Smith is them attacking the interior of the defensive line in the first round. I love that they're all about this. They're getting the quick, shifty, I don't want to call him a gadget running back, but that smaller player. So I love that they're not just thinking in the same box that we've seen them do for so long at this point. So I'm excited about Deuce Vaughn as a player. I'm excited about the story. I'm excited about what Deuce Vaughn represents. Again, A+ overall effort from me. Great job by the Cowboys. Finally, Jalen Brooks. If you were watching the show, you know that my power went out right before this pick. Cowboys didn't address the wide receiver position, which to me suggests maybe a higher level of belief in the down the roster players they currently have in Simi Fehoko, Jalen Tolbert, who they took in the 3rd round last year, and maybe Kavontae Turpin. But Jalen Brooks has some 50-50 ball potential. That's an exciting trait. And again, in the 7th round, to get a trade that you like, an experimental thing, you never know. Maybe he carves out a role. Obviously, Noah Brown carved out a huge role after being a 7th round pick himself. Anything is possible. So contextually speaking, I give it a B. Great job by the Cowboys. Overall grade. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I think sometimes when people do grades, they just pick letters or numbers or whatever, and then they just kind of pick the overall grade that feels right. I wanted this to be fair, right? Like, I graded each pick. So I feel like, well, if we're doing the overall, it should be like an average, right? So I added up the values of all the grades I handed out. I had an average, and here it is. Overall grade B. And I do think that when it comes to grades like this, B's are thought of negatively. I think there's a negative stigma associated with B's. Like, what? The draft is only a B. I mean, I'm supposed to be excited about a B. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you should. Like, a B is very good. I mean, people act like A's are really common. An A draft, A+ draft is uncommon. I mean, it's very hard to put together an entire draft class that you feel really good about, right? Where there's a player or where you feel really good about each and every player. And so I think the Cowboys did that. I think we can understand their line of thinking. I think we can see the problems that they're trying to address. I think we can understand how they are trying to form the team and the roster as a whole. And I think that they have shown their work. And so I'm willing to trust them. I'm willing to extend that benefit of the doubt. And the benefit of the doubt, in my mind, isn't just because they've drafted well for a long time. It's because they've won 12 games in each of the past 2 seasons. And they've done it a variety of different ways without certain players getting hurt, dismissing certain players, trading certain players, or cutting certain players, whatever. I mean, the Cowboys have earned the right to be trusted, and I'm willing to do that right here. So my grade of a B is not a harsh thing. It's just the reality of the grade. I think a B is a very good grade, so there's no reason to act like it is a negative thing. But what grade would you give the Dallas Cowboys? I would love to hear it. I am on Twitter and Instagram at RJ Ochoa because that is my name. I'm on TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. You could send me an email if you would like, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com, or you can leave a comment down below and we'll get to that as well. We still have a lot more things to discuss, obviously. We're not going anywhere, so make sure you subscribe right here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. I know it's the offseason, but like I said, we have a lot to get to. And our Madden franchise team returns this weekend now that the NFL draft is over. For now, I bid you adieu. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I hope you eat something delicious. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next time.